Good morning, it's Dr. Garrett. Today, let's talk a little bit about ferritin. Now, ferritin is kind of like what we think of the storage unit of iron. We know that every red blood cell has to hold iron in order to hold oxygen to it, in order for it to get to our cells. However, what it's holding is the iron that's floating in the bloodstream. Now, anything like a heavy menses or inflammation or an injury can deplete this iron from your body. So it has to rely on storage of iron, which is stored in the form of ferritin. Now, ferritin is stored, in the liver, in the spleens, and the bones. And so when we're measuring blood, we're looking at ferritin levels to see what your iron storage is. Now, if your ferritin levels are low, you're going to notice a couple big things. You're going to have hair that is very brittle and dry. You're going to notice that you have extreme and profound fatigue. You're also going to notice that your hormones are unbalanced. Your HPA-HPT axis, your thyroid axis, your adrenal axis can be dysregulated. You may also notice more like cognitive decline, so you're feeling more brain fog, feeling a little bit off, not right where you're supposed to be. So how do we increase ferritin? What should it be at? In functional medicine, we do things a little bit different. As you know, we want optimization. Just because you fall in a normal range does not mean you're optimized. So with optimization, I want you anywhere between 80 and 100 on your ferritin, with you leaning closer to that 100 line. So when you are low, again, you're gonna have a lot of problems. So how do we build this up and how do we get it to where it needs to go? Now, as you know, I'm not much of a meat eater, so I don't tend to get a whole lot of meat in my diet. However, if you do things like organ meats, this is the best way for you to be able to get ferritin and to build up those heme stores. So if you don't like organ meat, you can do organ meat supplements. A caution to women: if you get an organ meat supplement, make sure that it is just the liver, the heart, the spleen. It's nothing like fallopian tubes, uterus, and ovaries, as this is going to augment your estrogen and can be having a little bit more problems with estrogen, especially if your estrogen is unopposed. Then you run the risk of developing really bad things like cancer. So make sure that you know your estrogen levels before you take an organ meat supplement with things that contain estrogen, but an organ meat supplement. Now, there are seasonings that you can do, like Pluck, P-L-U-C-K. You can find this on Amazon. I go to the Pluck website. Pretty tasty, tastes like salt, tastes like garlic. They've got different seasonings, but it is organ meat, so you can get your organ meats from there. If you are a fan of things like liver, you can do liver, you can do heart, you can do all of those, and that will help boost it up. Now, if you're like me and you do not care for meat a whole lot, then what you can do is you can fortify with things like tofu, spinach, black beans, which is my favorite, chickpeas, kale, all of those high, beets are another one, all of those high iron heme containing foods. Now, the cool thing that you can do is if you increase your vitamin C, you're going to help with the absorption of that ferritin a little bit faster, absorption of the iron a little bit faster, whether you're doing organ meats or whether you're doing it more of a plant-based like I do. So I typically recommend, get plenty of vitamin C in, whether you're doing bell peppers, strawberries, oranges, whatever. Or you can add in something like an ascorbic acid, a vitamin C complex, which I typically recommend that you do about 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams per day to help increase that for you. Now, try to lay off things like tea and coffee, as those can deplete your iron as well. But ferritin is really important. It is the storage unit of iron, and we need that at higher levels. If you have any questions, give me a call.